In 1968, a tool and die man in Rockford, Illinois, snapped a Craftsman ratchet clean off under his car on a Saturday morning. He slid out, wiped his hands, and drove to the Sears on East State Street with the broken half in his pocket. He had no receipt. He had owned the thing 14 years. He set it on the counter, and the man behind it looked at it, reached below, and handed him a new one. No paperwork, no questions. 2 words, anything else. He was back under that car in 40 minutes. That ratchet is number 2 on this list. And the thing he actually walked out with that morning, the plainest thing in the whole store, the one that was never a tool at all, is number 1. He was not a rare man. In 1968, there was a father like him in every house on his block, and the tools in every one of those garages came from the same place. Sears sold the tools, the mower, the water heater, the washer, and the house paint, and a man built his whole kit one Christmas at a time from a single counter. He did not shop around. He did not compare. He bought Craftsman because Craftsman came with a promise, and the promise held. We traded that away. We were handed a world where the store is a website, the warranty is a phone tree, and the thing you bought is cheaper to replace than to fix. That standard did not die because it failed. It died because it was worth more sold than kept. Number 17 is a pair of pliers so good that grown men now pay collector prices for them on the used market because nothing since has worked as well. Number 6 is a saw so dangerous the company offered to pay owners $100 just to cut it apart and mail back the pieces. And number 1, the plainest thing on this list, the thing that came free with every tool and cost the company nothing until the day it cost them everything, is the reason your father bought Craftsman at all. These 20 tools were never just steel. They were the mark of a man who bought once, well, and expected it to outlast him. Not a purchase, a promise. Every tool on this list that Rockford man had in his own 2 hands. If that kind of standard is worth remembering, subscribe and stay to the end, because the last one is the one that matters most. Let us count down the 20 lost Craftsman tools every American dad owned, and what really disappeared when Sears went under. Number 20, the Craftsman tape measure. The one that lived on his belt, its case scarred, the hook worn shiny and loose. You thumbed the lock, ran the blade out, and the stud was found and marked in one motion. That loose hook was not broken. It slides on purpose, the exact thickness of the tang, so the tape reads true whether you hook an edge or push it. For the father framing a basement on weekends, it was the one tool he never set down and never once thought about. Sears sold them by the millions through a catalog that reached every farmhouse in America, from a brand that had been on the shelf since 1927. The Rockford man's rode his belt so long it wore a pale rectangle into every pair of work pants he owned. Not a tool you notice, a tool you never work without. Number 19, the chrome edge handsaw, a taper-ground blade with a chrome edge hung on a nail in 10 million garages. You started it on the pull, then drove it long and easy, and it cut clean without wandering. The chrome edge held longer than plain steel, and the handle was hardwood a man could grip wet or dry. For the dad cutting plywood on 2 sawhorses, this saw did every job before the circular saw came home in a box. Sears sold saws under the Craftsman name from the 1920s onward, back when a saw was expected to last a working life and be filed 100 times. The Rockford man's chromage outlived him and still hangs in his son's garage. Not a saw you replace, a saw you sharpen, Number 18, the nut driver set. Colored handles in a row, each one a socket on a shaft, sized for the sheet metal nuts in everything Sears sold. You matched the handle color to the size, seated it, and spun the nut off faster than any wrench. For the man fixing his own dryer or furnace, these little drivers opened every appliance in the house without a single trip to a repairman. Sears made them to fit the very machines Sears sold, so the store's own tools serviced the store's own appliances. That was the whole idea of the place. One company sold you the washer, the wrench that opened it, and the part that fixed it. Not a tool for the shop. A tool for everything else you owned. Number 17, the Robo-Grip pliers. The ones men still hunt for. A self-adjusting plier that grabbed anything you closed it on, the jaws walking in on their own until they locked tight, no thumb wheel and no guessing. You squeezed the handles and it just gripped, round or square, big or small, and the harder you pulled, the harder it held. For the man reaching one-handed into an engine bay with his other hand holding a light, it did in one motion what a wrench set did in 5. Sears sold them for years, and then they were simply gone from the line, and today a clean pair brings real money on the used market because nothing since has matched them. The Rockford man's grandson keeps his in a drawer and will not lend them out. Not a tool that failed. A tool that was discontinued. Number 16, the speed lever. A cranked bar with a socket drive on the end, and it spun a bolt out faster than any hand. You broke the bolt loose with a wrench, snapped the speed lever on, and cranked it round like an egg beater until the bolt fell into your palm. For the man pulling a transmission pan with 20 bolts in it, this one bent piece of steel saved him half an hour and both his wrists. It was pure Sears thinking. One simple, cheap, clever thing that did a job the expensive tools did worse. The Rockford man kept his in the door of his toolbox, where he could reach it without looking. Not a tool with a motor, a tool with a crank. Number 15. The screw-holding screwdriver. A driver with 2 little jaws at the tip that gripped the screw so it could not fall. You slid the collar down, the jaws closed on the screw head, and you started it one-handed into a place your fingers could never reach. For the man wiring an outlet in a dark box, or setting a hinge deep in a cabinet, this tool was a second hand when he only had one to spare. Sears sold clever tools like this for decades, small solutions to problems every homeowner met and no one else bothered to solve. The Rockford man kept one in the kitchen drawer, not the garage, because that is where it was always needed. Not a driver that turns, a driver that holds.
Before we go on, I made something special for you. A guide for men like us who still believe a man should be able to fix his own home. It's the forgotten handyman secrets, the old-fashioned repair tricks our grandfathers used to fix anything around the house and keep it running for life. But these skills are disappearing fast, and once they're gone for good. Don't pay a repairman ever again. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link below. Go ahead, I'll wait right here.
Number 14, the hand impact driver. A fat steel handle you struck with a hammer, and it broke loose the screws nothing else could touch. You seated the bit, leaned on it, and hit the end hard, and it drove down and twisted at once, shocking the rust-free and turning the screw. For the man facing a seized brake drum screw on a Saturday, this one cheap tool stood between him and a shop bill he could not pay. It came from an age when the answer to a stuck fastener was leverage and a hammer, not a trip to buy a new part. The Rockford man's had a mushroomed end and a handle polished by 40 years of palms. Not a tool you turn, a tool you hit. Stop the count for a moment, because the story of what happened here is not the one most people tell. Craftsman did not go bankrupt. Craftsman got sold. In January of 2017, Sears agreed to sell the brand to Stanley Black & Decker, and the deal closed that March. The price, by Stanley's own filing with the government, was about $916 million. 90 years of a name your grandfather trusted, bought, and paid for in a single transaction. Sears had put that name on tools since 1927. At the time of the sale, Craftsman still had American factories behind it, employing more than 3,000 people. Then, in 2018, Sears itself filed for bankruptcy, and the stores began to go dark, town by town, until by the middle of 2025, there were fewer than 10 Sears left in the entire country. The tools did not disappear. You can buy Craftsman today at Lowe's and at Ace. What disappeared was the counter, the man behind it, the store on East State Street in every town in America where a broken tool became a new one in the time it took to say 2 words. Number 13. The Craftsman bench vise. Cast iron bolted to the corner of the bench with a swivel base and jaws that could hold anything a man needed to fight. You cranked the handle, and it clamped down with a force that would not let go, and it doubled as an anvil when he had none. For the father teaching a boy to file a piece of steel, the vise was the third hand that made the lesson possible. Sears sold them heavy and cheap, cast in American foundries, and men bolted them down and never moved them again. The Rockford man's vise is still on the same bench, in the same corner, 60 years later. Not a tool you carry, a tool you bolt down for life. Number 12. The red metal toolbox. Craftsman red, with a top chest and a rolling cabinet, and a ball-bearing drawer that shut with a sound a man could recognize across a garage. You built it up one drawer at a time, and where a man's tools sat inside it told you everything about how he worked. For the dad, who had nothing else that was truly his, that box was his desk, his office, and his estate, and his kids knew not to touch it. Sears sold that red box to a generation of American mechanics, and it became the shape of the word garage in this country. When the Rockford man died, his family did not argue about the house. They argued about the box, not a box for tools, a box for a life's work. Number 11. The Craftsman bench grinder. A gray motor with a stone on each arbor, bolted beside the vise, spinning up with a rising hum every man knew. You leaned a dull chisel or a mower blade into it, the sparks poured down, and a dead edge came back in a minute. For the man who could not afford to replace a blade, the grinder was the machine that made every other tool in the garage last twice as long. American makers built these for Sears, stamped with a model prefix that told you exactly which factory turned them out. The Rockford mans ran every Sunday evening, sharpening whatever the week had dulled. Not a tool that makes things, a tool that keeps your tools alive. Number 10. The Craftsman drill press. A cast iron column, a table you cranked up and down, and a quill that bored a hole dead square every time. You clamped your work, set the depth stop, pulled the handle, and it drilled truer than any hand ever could. For the man building a set of shelves or a go-kart for his kid, the drill press was the first real machine he ever owned. Atlas Press of Kalamazoo, Michigan built drill presses and lathes for Sears, and those machines are still running in home shops today, 80 years on. They were sold to homeowners and built like they were meant for a factory floor. Not a machine that wears out, a machine that outlives its owner. Number 9. The Craftsman circular saw. Heavy in the hand, a steel shoe, a cord, and a scream that meant work was starting. You set the depth, lined the notch on the shoe up with your pencil line, and drove it through a sheet of plywood in one pass. For the father framing his own garage on weekends, this saw did in a morning what a handsaw did in a day. Sears put a circular saw within reach of a working man's paycheck, and that one machine is why so many American garages and rec rooms were built by the men who owned them. The Rockford man built his own back porch with his. Not a tool for a job site, a tool for your own house. Number 8. The Craftsman table saw. The heart of the home shop, a cast iron top and a blade standing through it, and the model number began with 113. That prefix meant Emerson Electric built it, and men learned to read those numbers like a code that told them which American factory made what. You set the fence, fed the wood through with a push stick, and ripped a board straight and true. For the man who bought his lumber rough to save money, this saw turned cheap boards into furniture. The Rockford man's had a cast iron top he waxed twice a year so the wood would glide and the iron would never rust. Not a saw for a shop, a saw for a garage. Number 7, the Craftsman lawn tractor. Red and black sitting in half the garages in America, and the model number began with 917. That prefix meant Roper and later others built it for Sears, and a man could order any part for it from the same catalog. You changed the oil, sharpened the blade, greased the spindles, and it cut your grass for 20 years. For the father with a half-acre and 4 kids, that tractor was the machine that gave him back his Saturday. Sears sold parts and diagrams for everything it ever made, which meant the thing you bought was a thing you could keep. You could order a single bolt for a 15-year-old mower, and it would come in the mail. Not a machine you replace, a machine you maintain. Here is the part of his story we have skipped. The Rockford man did not start with a red chest full of tools. He started in 1954, 22 years old, newly married, and broke, standing in the Sears on East State Street with exactly enough money for one wrench. He had planned to buy the cheap one. The man behind the counter, a fellow who had worked that department since before the war, put the Craftsman in his hand instead and told him the truth as he understood it. "That is the last one of those you will ever have to buy. It cost him more than he wanted to spend that day. He bought it anyway." And the man was right. That wrench never broke, and the ones that did break got handed across that same counter and replaced without a word for 50 years. He built his whole kit that way, one tool at a time, every Christmas and every Father's Day, from one store on one promise. And the promise itself, the plainest thing in that whole building, is still coming. It is number 1. Number 6, the Craftsman radial arm saw, the king of the home shop and the one that came back to haunt the company. A big blade hung on an arm above the table, and you pulled it toward you through the wood, and one machine cross-cut, ripped, and mitered everything a man built. For the father who trimmed out his whole house himself, this saw was the reason he never called a carpenter. It was also the tool that took fingers by the thousands, and Emerson Electric, which built them for Sears, eventually ran a recall program so serious that owners were offered $100 to cut the carriage off and mail it back, so the saw could never be used again. The Rockford man kept his, guarded it, and taught his son to feed the wood and never chase the blade. Not a saw that was weak, a saw that punished one moment of trust. Number 5, The Craftsman socket set. The set that started every man's kit, laid out in a metal case with a molded tray, every socket in its own slot. You broke the bolt loose with the breaker bar, spun it out with the ratchet, and the whole car opened up to you. For the young father with a car he could not afford to have fixed, that one case of sockets was the difference between a running car and a lost job. New Britain and other American forges turned these out for Sears by the millions, chrome-plated, stamped with the size big enough to read in a dark engine bay. The Rockford man bought his in 1955 and was still using the same half-inch socket the week he died. Not a set you outgrow, a set you build on. Number 4, the Craftsman. Screwdrivers, the ones with the clear amber handles that a man could grip with oily hands, and a tip that did not twist out and round off. You leaned into it, and it turned the screw instead of chewing it, because the steel was hard where it counted and the handle filled your hand. For the man who kept a set in the kitchen drawer and a set in the garage, these drivers touched everything in the house. Western Forge, out of Colorado Springs, made Craftsman screwdrivers and pliers for decades, and men could feel the difference the moment they picked one up. The Rockford man had 4 of them in his top drawer, worn to the shape of his own grip. Not a driver that slips, a driver that bites. Number 3, the Craftsman combination wrenches. The set every man knew by feel, open on one end, boxed on the other, hanging in order on a rail. You reached without looking, found the size by touch, and it fit without slop, because the forging was clean and the tolerances were honest. Look at the head of an old one, and you will find a small mark, a V between 2 lines, and men learned to read those marks like a signature, because that one meant Moore Drop Forging of Springfield, Massachusetts made it. For the father under a car with his kid holding the light, the right wrench in the right size was the whole difference between a good afternoon and a ruined one. The Rockford man's set was the first Craftsman he ever bought, and he never bought another. Not a wrench you replace, a wrench you inherit. Number 2, the Craftsman ratchet. This is the one from the top of our story, the tool at the center of every American garage. A round head, a thumb wheel to flip the direction, and a fine tooth count that let you turn a bolt in a space too tight for a wrench. You seated the socket, clicked it round, and that sound is the sound of an American Saturday. For the man who did all his own work, this one tool did more than any other he owned, and when it finally broke, it broke because he had used it 10,000 times. Sears built these to be handed over the counter and replaced without a receipt, which is the only reason a company would ever build a ratchet that good. The Rockford man broke exactly 3 in 50 years and paid for none of them. Not a tool, you baby. A tool you use up. Number 1, the lifetime warranty. It was never a tool at all. It was a promise, printed in the catalog and honored at a counter, that if a Craftsman hand tool ever broke in any way for any reason, you got a new one. No receipt, no paperwork, no proof that you had not been an idiot with it. You walked in with the broken half and walked out with a whole one, and it took less time than parking. That is what he actually carried out of that store in 1968, and every time before and after. And here is the thing worth sitting with. Stanley Black & Decker says it honors the old warranties, and Lowe's and Ace take the broken ones back, and that is real. And it is more than most companies would do. But the promise was never really the legal language. The promise was that there was a store on East State Street, and one on the main drag of every town in this country, and a man behind the counter who took your broken tool and gave you a new one because that was simply how it worked. Fewer than 10 Sears are left in America now. The paper survived. The counter did not. He did not learn to trust that promise from an advertisement. He learned it at 22, broke, from a man who put the good wrench in his hand and said, "That is the last one of those you will ever have to buy. Here is the hope in it, and it is real. That steel is still out there. It is in estate sales and flea markets and the bottom of dead men's toolboxes, going for $2 and $3 apiece, waiting for a pair of hands that knows what it is holding. It is better than almost anything you can buy new today. It is still under that warranty. And the standard behind it, the idea that you buy the good one once and keep it forever, was never Sears's to sell or to take away. It is a decision you can make this weekend. Not the most valuable thing on this list, the plainest, and the only one that was ever really yours. None of it needed a store to survive. That is the part the sale never understood. A man with a red chest and a promise behind it owed nothing to anyone. He fixed his own car and framed his own porch and cut his own grass. He handed a broken tool across a counter and got a whole one back, and that transaction told him he had chosen right. The brand did not vanish. It changed hands for $900 million, and the tools are still on a shelf at Lowe's. What went under was the place, and the man in it, and the plain understanding between them that a thing sold to a working man should outlast the working man. We did not lose the tools. They are in the bottom of a toolbox in a garage that has not been opened since the funeral, still perfect, still guaranteed. What we lost was smaller than any tool and worth more than the whole brand. That is the last one of those you will ever have to buy.